M5, the most celebrated badge in the super saloon world. As the model line turns 40, we've set out to identify the greatest M5 of them all. We've already driven the first 3 M5s and chosen our favourite. Click the link on screen to watch that video if you haven't already. Now it's the turn of the modern M5s, roughly spanning the second 20 years of BMW M5 production from 2004 to 2023. This is where the M5 moved firmly into the modern era: sophisticated electronics, a paddle shift gearbox and lightning performance. The E60 M5 landed in 2004, the first and last M5 to use a V10. Good for 500 brake horsepower, it was dripping with motorsport technology and revved hard and fast beyond 8,000 RPM. Buyers in North America could spec a manual transmission. For only the second time, the M5 was available as a touring as well as a saloon. The latter weighs 1,830 kilograms.
So the first of the modern BMW M5s. This is a very different car to the one that it replaced, the E39. From a hardware point of view, it's almost completely different. And it's all about the V10 in this car, isn't it? All about that screaming 8 and a bit thousand RPM V10. So what's it really like? I mean, it's mega. It's a supercar engine. It's a 500 horsepower naturally aspirated V10 that revs beyond 8. It's a phenomenal power plant. Is it just a bit muted in here though? Even up at 8,000 RPM. It's not that loud in here. I'm told it sounds incredible from outside, but why can't we enjoy more of that soundtrack inside the car? Others have said that what you don't have with this V10 is the mid-range torque that you want in this kind of car. And they have a point. They do have a point. It doesn't really get going the moment you hit the accelerator. But it's not a major issue because you can get down the gears, you can chase that red line, and then this car is seriously rapid. So the question is whether or not you're better off with a really torque-rich engine, maybe a turbo engine, or if you prefer the response and the frantic energy of this V10. The V10 is pretty intoxicating. What about the SMG robotized manual gearbox, the paddle shift gearbox, the first M5 to have one of these? Depending on who you talk to, it's either enough to ruin this car or part of the car's charm. The trouble is, if you use this paddle shift transmission like you would a DCT, it does feel terrible. Keep your foot flat, pull for an upshift, and it's super jerky. You find yourself banging your head like this. But if you lift off just as you pull the paddle for the upshift, it's that classic robotized manual thing. Just come off the power, pull for the upshift, and it's fine. Downshifts, they're absolutely fine. They're quick, they're lovely. The point about this gearbox is that you have to put the work in, you have to try a little bit. It's a bit more like a conventional manual transmission. You have to work at it. And if you fluff a gear change, that's on you. So there is some satisfaction to be had from working with it to smooth out those upshifts. But nevertheless, I would choose a really good DCT or conventional auto over this. There is actually a sense of weight about this car. It's going through that really tight corner there. You can sort of feel the front end just beginning to push a little bit, but it's got massive grip. It's got still good ride comfort. I thought this was going to be quite a crashy, bouncy kind of car where you feel the bumps. It's not like that at all. It's surprisingly serene, but then there's actually really strong body control as well. Because of the grip, because of the body control, it does get from point A to point B very, very fast. And it feels quick in a straight line, up at the top end through 6,000 RPM. It is a great M5, this E60. That stuff about duality that I was talking about in the other video with the older cars, this one has it. It has performance, it has handling, it has precision and agility, but then there's also comfort and usability, and it's got character and charm. That's what you want from a super saloon, and this E60, for me, it's got it. The Intercooler is more than just a YouTube channel. It's also a multi-award-winning, ad-free online car magazine on website and app. We've got what we think is the finest team of automotive writers working anywhere in the world today. Better yet, we're offering you 3 weeks absolutely free with no credit card, no commitment, just 3 weeks completely free on us. In that time, if you wanted to, you could read every story we've ever published. That's more than 1,000 stories and close to 2 million words. So to get 3 weeks completely free on us, simply click the link on screen and sign up in seconds.
If there is a forgotten M5, it must be the F10 that replaced the E60 in 2011. Gone was the screaming V10, in its place a more powerful but less thrilling twin-turbo V8 producing 553 brake horsepower. But the E60's clunky SMG gearbox made way for a snappy dual-clutch transmission, one reason the F10 weighed more than 1,900 kilograms. Again, in North America, a manual gearbox was available. This is the 30 Yara edition, celebrating the M5's 30th anniversary. It's one of just 300 such cars produced, each with close to 600 brake horsepower.
These 30th anniversary cars didn't just get more power, they also had the competition pack that was available on other F10 M5s with a whole suite of chassis upgrades, and they made a real difference. The standard F10 M5 is a surprisingly wallowy car. I was actually shocked when I first drove one. It doesn't feel that sporty at all. Comfortable, yeah, great, but that's not really why you're buying an M5, is it? But the upgraded chassis made all the difference. So this 30 Yara model does feel like a sporting car. It has the precision in the steering, it has the body control, it has the agility and the responses. And actually I'm slightly surprised at how sort of busy the ride comfort is. I was expecting it to be really plush like most of the older M5s, but it's quite connected. You do feel the bumps. It's not uncomfortable, but you feel the bumps. Let's talk powertrain then. Back to a V8, this time with twin turbos. That muscle in the mid-range, that effortlessness, it does make a difference. I think that is what I want from a super saloon. But there's a clear trade-off. The soundtrack is pretty muted. You don't have the fireworks at the top end that you get in the E60. So you just have to decide what's more important to you. But what's beyond doubt is how much better this DCT, this dual clutch transmission is than the SMG in the older car. So much sharper, so much quicker. This is the first M5 that really feels sort of traction limited because it's still rear wheel drive, but it's got 600 horsepower and a load of torque. So if you put your foot down too hard, it's very easy to break traction or at least wake up the traction control system. I don't mind that at all. This does feel, at least to sit in, like a big, quite cumbersome sort of luxury car. It has that almost limousine kind of feel to it, but it is surprisingly agile and keen and responsive and well balanced. The F10 is the overlooked BMW M5, but get the 30 Yara model or even just a standard car with the competition pack and it's really good. I think Andrew's going to say that he's surprised by this car. I can hear him saying it. I'm not really, because I've driven this car before, this very car before actually, so I know what it's all about. And do you know, this would make a fine everyday car. It would be a lovely thing to tool about in every day. Is it just lacking a little bit of charm, a little bit of character? Is it just a little bit anodyne? I think it probably is. It does still handle well though. All of these cars, every M5, they all have a sort of common feel through tighter corners when you really attack them. They just feel lovely and balanced and poised. And like the last one, this has got massive grip and really solid body control. This is a heavy car, this one. Basically 2 tons, it's the heaviest car of the lot. But from a body control point of view, it doesn't feel it at all. On the brakes, that's where you feel the weight. You hit the brake pedal, you suddenly feel the mass behind you. I do like the steering in this 30 Yara model. I do like the steering. It's accurate. It's pretty quick without being hyperactive. It's a good weight. You can choose between different levels of weighting. I've got the middle one, Sport, and it's just right. So it is a fine car, this one, this F10 M5. It is a fine car. Just lacking a little bit of excitement, a little bit of fire in its belly. But if you're looking for an everyday car, this would be ace.
All of which brings us here to the 6th BMW M5, the F90 that landed in 2017. Like its predecessor, the F90 uses a twin-turbo V8. The biggest difference between this model and the last was a four-wheel drive system, albeit one that could be switched to rear-wheel drive at the press of a button. This is no regular F90 M5. This is the CS that arrived in 2021. Power was up to 626 brake horsepower and weight well down to less than 1900 kilograms, while the chassis was reworked with trick new dampers.
M5 CS, the F90. I didn't really understand the CS when I first saw the tech specs, when I first saw the news stories. I didn't really know what it was for, but then I drove it. And oh my God, this is a phenomenal car. It's really quite a focused kind of sports saloon. CS, you'd expect it to be, wouldn't you? It's got these very hard carbon M sport seats. It's only got 2 seats in the rear, lots of weight saving measures. It's quite an extreme car, and you sort of pay for it in some important ways. These seats, they're not that comfy. The ride, it is busy, although the damping is very, very good. The ride is busy. In everyday use, some of that stuff might just start grating a little bit. I have to be completely honest, the ride is more uncompromising than I remembered. But of course you get so much in return. That level of focus that's hardwired into this car means it is phenomenal to drive. The body control is out of this world. The grip is just sensational. Traction with four-wheel drive, absolutely mighty. The steering is just stunning in this car. It is so accurate, and the steering response is instantaneous. It darts into a corner, not like a super saloon at all, but like a sports car. Honestly, this thing feels like it's 300 kilograms lighter than it really is. And the way it goes in a straight line is absolutely staggering. 630 odd horsepower. It rips, it's so quick. And the engine, it's dripping with character. What did I say about the previous car, the F10? Just not enough character? It's because this one's got it all. It's intoxicating. And of course, if you want to, you can make it rear-wheel drive and it'll be a total hooligan. It does come on pretty aggressive tyres, Pirelli P0 Corsa tyres. They're not brilliant in the wet. They're not designed for it, so it's a good job we've got a warm, sunny day today. So it is uncompromising, this thing, it really is. But not to the point of sort of ruin, but the benefit, the advantage, is that it handles and steers and goes like no other M5. Frankly, like no other super saloon. There is a sense with this car that it's BMW M just going, look what we can do when we build something truly special. The level of polish. This is the M division just going, yeah, we're still the best. The regular F90 M5, it's sort of fine, really. Very, very competent, very, very capable. It's quick, but it's a little bit unremarkable, a little bit forgettable. It's because they saved all the genius, all the magic for this CS model. It's expensive, it's pretty rare. You have to be certain that you can put up with a slightly busy ride, that you can live with these very thinly padded seats. But honestly, you really should put up with those things because the rest of the car, oh my goodness me. This video is proudly sponsored by car finance specialist JBR Capital. Now, we work with JBR Capital because we think they understand what it means to be a car enthusiast. Talk to JBR Capital today and you'll talk to an actual person who'll help you put together a finance package to suit your specific needs. There's no one-size-fits-all approach here. JBR Capital will consider offering a finance package on any car. So if you've been turned away by other car finance companies, you know where to go. High-end car finance is all JBR Capital does, meaning it understands the car market and car enthusiasts better than most. So before you finance your next sports car, supercar, classic car, even a brand new car, why not see what JBR Capital can do for you? Visit jbrcapital.com or click the link on screen, and this is the important bit, remember to tell them the Intercooler sent you. JBR Capital is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. These three M5s broadly represent the second 20 years of M5 production, E60, F10, F90.
Yes.
And the job for today is to choose one of these three monsters to go up against the winner of our previous shootout from the last video of the three early M5s. We chose, spoiler alert, the second generation car, the E34, as our winner from the first three M5s.
So if you're not quite as up to speed with your E numbers as some BMW geeks like us are, the E34 was down to the second generation 5 Series, built in the 1990s, but still with that lovely straight six twin cam engine, still with the 5-speed box rear wheel drive.
And it is a gorgeous car. I hadn't driven one before. I didn't have high expectations of it, but it's a wonderful thing.
You were a bit surprised, weren't you?
I really was.
Whereas I wasn't in the least.
No, well, you knew it well, didn't you?
Well, because I am that old, yeah. It's the standard setup. It doesn't mean it can't be beaten, but it's the benchmark. It's the one by which, to me, all other M5s should be judged.
Okay, and so we have to choose one of these three cars to go up against the E34. So let's start then with the E60. This is the one with the screaming V10.
Curious one.
The first, really, of the modern M5s.
Yeah. First without 3 pedals in its footwell.
Yeah, although you could get 3 pedals in North America, but not here.
No, I've never driven one.
You've told me, though, that you've been a bit disappointed in this car today.
Yeah, it's funny, because on the way up here, I thought that I was going to have a bit of a struggle with this because, as we know, it's got that very early generation SMG gearbox, and the gear changes are quite slow, and unless you time them properly, they're a bit clunky, and it just kind of gets in the way. But actually, you can manage that. If you just come off the gas and you wait, and you can do it. The disappointment for me, I can barely believe I'm saying it, but now I'm saying it, I remember, is that it's the V10.
The E60 M5, its entire reputation is built on that engine, because it is a special motor.
So this is a naturally aspirated 5-litre V10 engine that goes to almost 8,000 RPM.
No, beyond 8,000.
So you would expect when you give it the gas, it's going to make your head explode. And it just doesn't. It's actually quite quiet. If you think of the kind of noises that we're used to V10 engines making in Lamborghinis and Audis and that sort of thing, those screaming, tearing, shrieking sounds, it just doesn't do any of them. But you've still got the problem of a car with, a very high specific output, no turbocharger, so actually quite poor low down torque. So you couple that with the fact that you still have to use the gearbox to make sure you've always got the revs up, and it's just, I don't mind hard work in a car. I don't even mind having to work hard in a car which is meant to be a luxury saloon. But there's got to be the reward there, and it handles quite nicely. I know you can skid them about and do all of that, but yeah, disappointing.
I really like the engine, but I agree that it's not well suited to a heavy executive car.
Yeah.
It's not quite right.
No.
There is something slightly jarring about it. Okay, let's move it on then to the F10. So are you of the opinion that fewer cylinders, a V8, but with a couple of turbos is a better solution for this kind of car?
You see, when I came up here this morning, the one thing I knew was that this was coming last.
Yeah.
Of the 6 cars, that this was going to come last, because I can remember driving them with these were new and they felt remote and they felt heavy, and I just thought, oh, come on, you really, I mean, making them, nice and easy to use every day is one thing, but you can go too far, and I just thought, this has gone too far. But then actually, I quite liked it today. I'm that much, maybe it's because I'm, whatever it is, 10 years older, I don't know. But this is the 30th anniversary car, isn't it?
The 30-year car, yeah.
So it's got some stuff on it, it's got a bit more power. I don't remember the original being as good as this. This is actually this would be a lovely thing to stooge about in every day. And just on your point, I absolutely think that in this car, a twin turbo V8, which still sounds good, which it does, laden with torque, allied to a double clutch gearbox, not some robotized manual like you get in the E60. I think it is a more appropriate, I think it's better than that. I think it's a better engine for this kind of car. I prefer the powertrain in this to the 5-litre the naturally aspirated 5-litre V10 in that. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I just do.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you've got 2 tons to shift, you need that torque.
You do.
You need it. You're right, this is the 30 Euro model, so it has the competition pack chassis upgrade, so it's quite different to a standard F10 M5. That's why it actually feels quite alert, quite agile, quite not boaty. The standard car does feel quite boaty.
And it's got that almost 600 horsepower output, which would then become the standard power output for the F90 that succeeded it. So it's got a bit more get up and go, much taller, tighter chassis. It kind of makes you realise what it could and perhaps should have been from the outset.
What I have realised is that even when we're talking about M5s, right? These are not M3s, they're not M2s, they're M5s, they're big 4-door executive cars. We still want them to be quite driver focused.
Very driver focused.
We really do.
They're M5s, they're M cars.
We're looking for drivers' cars. We're not looking for something comfy and wallowy with a, you know, a woofly V8 that you can cruise back. We're looking for drivers' cars.
Yeah. And there've been so many M5s that show it's not a trade-off. You don't need a car that, you know, has a rock hard ride and jangles your fillings and, you know, it's just horrible to drive on anything other than a racetrack. You can have that car with that feel and that response, and it can still be comfortable, it can still ride well, it can still work as a daily driver. You don't need to make that choice.
Okay. Good segue, right? So F90, M5, CS. Very specifically the CS. Does this go too far for you?
I thought it might. You can configure it very specifically in terms of what you do with its damper and its throttle response and its gear change mapping and that sort of thing. So you can kind of turn it into the car, but I certainly wouldn't want it to be any more on it than this, because it's very aggressive.
It's on the borderline, isn't it? Yeah.
But actually, I can forgive it that because it's being an M5 again. And even if that means some compromise, because there's still, although it's lighter than the F10, even though there are some compromises which have been introduced, which you have to manage this amount of mass, I just like the fact that this might be the most driver-focused M5 of them all, to be honest.
I think it probably is, yeah. I think it probably is.
And if that's what you want an M car to be, and it is, you know, hard to argue against.
So we are agreed then that this is the winner of these 3 cars. And we have to be clear about this. We're talking about the F90 CS. We are talking about the CS.
So how do you think an F90 competition would have gone on? Better or worse than this?
Worse.
Yeah.
Worse. It would have been more agreeable in daily use, but when you get on top of this thing and chuck it at a road, it is phenomenal.
It certainly does things. It has capabilities that no other, frankly, any M5, let alone a modern M5 has had. It is so much more rewarding and involving. And yeah, I'll put up with quite a lot of compromise to have that.
So this is the winner of these 3.
Yeah.
And that means this one goes up against that gorgeous E34 M5.
How do we make that decision?
So the job for right now is to choose a winner between that E34 and this. Off you go.
Oh, where do we begin? There's an awful lot of me that wants it to be the E34. There is a purity, a lack of complication, an honesty, and as well as a subtleness about the E34 that it just pulls all my strings. It's what I want a car to be. It's what I want an M car to be. It's what I want an M5 to be. But I cannot get away from the fact that this is so much more usable, and at the same time, in a very, very different way, just as much fun to drive, maybe more. It's so difficult. I mean, as a recreation, as something just to have in my shed to go for a tootler, I'd take the E34 every day of the week, without any question at all. As something that I was going to drive all the time, which I guess is probably the point, because that's what M5s are about, then it would be equally clear-cut. It would be this.
It's very telling, isn't it? The 2 cars that we've chosen from the old batch and the new batch are probably the most driver-centric of the trios. Because that's what we're looking for. We want driver-focused cars, but we also still want some residual usability. That's what an M5 is all about. And considering all of that, this is the one. Just. It's such a tightly run thing, isn't it? So we are declaring the M5 CS, the F90, the greatest BMW M5
of them all. So far.
So far indeed, because the 7th generation M5 made its public debut at the Goodwood Festival of Speed in July. We now know that its twin-turbo V8 and hybrid system together develop 717 brake horsepower and 738 pound-foot of torque, but the car's weight, as expected, has rocketed. The G90 M5 weighs 2,435 kilograms, more than half a ton heavier than the previous M5 CS. BMW says it sprints to 62 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds and doesn't stop until 189 miles an hour with the optional M driver's package. It still has a four-wheel drive system that can be switched to rear drive, and it costs from £110,500. We'll drive it very, very soon.
But just to wrap things up here, what can that new car learn from our champion?
Get the balance. I'm sure it'll be a fantastic daily driver. I'm sure it'll be enormously fast. But if it is as poised and rewarding on a decent road as this, only then will it be able to say, job done.
Yeah, so there we go. For now, at least, this is the greatest BMW M5 of the lot. The new one's coming. If it warrants it, if we think the new car merits comparison with the M5 CS, the mighty M5 CS, we'll get them together and see if there is a new greatest BMW M5 of all time. But until then, thank you ever so much for watching. Remember to comment, let us know which of these three cars you think is the best. Give this video a thumbs up, and while I've got your attention, please head to the-intercooler.com and check out our multi-award-winning, ad-free online car magazine. Thank you ever so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back with more videos very soon.